powers of old Europe have entered into a holy alliance to exercise this specter. Pope and Tsar, Metternich and Guzman, French radicals and German police spies. Where is the party in opposition that has not been decreed as communistic by its opponents in power, or the opposition that has not hurled back the branding reproach of communism against the more advanced opposition parties, as well as against its reactionary adversaries? The two things result from this fact. Communism is already acknowledged by all European powers to be in itself a power. It is high time that communists should openly, in the face of the world, publish their views, their aims, their tendencies, and meet this nursery tale of the specter of communism with the manifesto of the party itself. To end the communism of various nationalities have assembled in London and sketched the following manifesto, to be published in the English, French, German, Italian, Flemish, and Danish languages. Chapter 1. Bourgeoisie and Proletarians. The history of all hitherto existing society is the history of class struggles. Freeman and slave, patrician and plebeian, lord and serf, guildmaster and journeyman. In a word, oppressor and oppressed stood in constant opposition to one another, carried on an uninterrupted, now hidden, now open fight that each time ended either in the revolutionary reconstruction of society at large or in the common ruin of the contending classes. In the earlier epochs of history, we find almost everywhere a complicated arrangement of society into various orders, a manifold gradation of social rank. In ancient Rome, we have patricians, knights, plebeian slaves. In the Middle Ages, feudal lords, vassals, guildmasters, journeymen, apprentices, serfs, and almost all of these classes, again, subordinate gradations. The modern bourgeoisie society has sprouted from the ruins of feudal society, has not done away with this class antagonisms. It has established new classes, new conditions of oppression, new forms of struggle in place of old ones. Our epoch, the epoch of bourgeoisie, possesses, however, the distinctive feature it has simplified into class antagonism. Society as a whole is more and more splitting up into two great hostile camps, into two great classes directly facing each other, bourgeoisie and proletariat. From the serfs of the Middle Ages sprang the chartered bourgeois of earliest towns. From these burgesses, the first elements of the bourgeoisie were developed. The discovery of America, the rounding of the Cape, opened up fresh ground for the rising bourgeoisie. The East Indian and Chinese markets, the colonization of America, the trade with the colonies, the increase in the means of exchange and in commodities generally, gave to commerce, to navigation, to industry, and impulse before known, and thereby to the revolutionary element in the tottering feudal society. A rapid development. The feudal system of industry, under which industrial production was monopolized by close guilds, now no longer sufficed the growing wants of the new markets. The manufacturing system took its place. The guildmasters were pushed on one side by the manufacturing middle class. Division of labor between the different corporate guilds vanished in the face of division of labor in single workshop. Meantime, the markets kept ever growing, the demand ever rising. Even manufacture no longer sufficed. Thereupon steam and machinery revolutionized industrial production. The place of manufacture was taken by the giant modern industry, the place of industrial middle class by industrial millionaires, the leaders of whole industrial armies, the modern bourgeoisie. Modern industry has established the world's market, for which discovery of America paved the way. The market was given an immense development to commerce, to navigation, to communication by land. This development has, in its turn, reacted on the extension of industry, and in proportion as an industry, commerce, navigation, and railways extended, in the same proportion the bourgeoisie developed and increased its capital and pushed into the background every class handed down from the Middle Ages. We see, therefore, how the modern bourgeoisie is itself the product of a long course of development, of a series of revolutions in the modes of production and of exchange. Each step in the development of the bourgeoisie was accompanied by a corresponding political advance of that class, an oppressed class under the sway of feudal nobility, an armed and self-governed association in the medieval commune. Here, independent urban republic, as in Italy and Germany, there taxable third estate of the monarchy, as in France. Afterwards, in the period of manufacture proper, serving either the semi-feudal or the absolute monarchy as a counterpose against the nobility, and, in fact, a cornerstone of the great monarchies in general. has at last since the establishment of modern industry and the world's market conquered for itself in the modern representative state exclusive political sway. The executive of modern state is but a committee for managing the common affairs of the whole bourgeoisie. The bourgeoisie, historically, has played a most revolutionary part. The bourgeoisie, wherever it has gotten over the upper hand, has put an end to all feudal, idyllic relations. It has pitilessly torn asunder the moldly feudal ties that bound man to its natural superiors, and has left remaining no other nexus between man and a man than naked is self-interest, hellish cash payment. It has drowned the most heavenly ecstasies of religious fervor, of chivalrous enthusiasm, of Philistine sentimentalism, in the icy water of egotistical calculation. It has resolved personal worth into exchange value, and in place of numberless infeasible chartered freedoms, has set up that single, unconscionable freedom, free trade. In one word, for exploitation, veiled by religious and political illusions, it has substituted naked, shameless, direct, brutal exploitation. The bourgeoisie has stripped of its halo every occupation hitherto honored and looked up to with reverent awe. It has converted the physician, the lawyer, the priest, the poet, and the man of science into its paid wage laborers. The bourgeoisie has torn away from the family its sentimental veil, and has reduced the family relation to a mere money relation. The bourgeoisie has disclosed how it came to pass that the brutal display of vigor in the Middle Ages, which reactionists so much admire, found its fitting complement in the most slothful indulgence. It has been the first to show what man's activity can bring about, and has accomplished wonders far surpassing Egyptian pyramids, Roman aqueducts, and Gothic cathedrals. It has conducted expeditions that put in the shade all former exoduses of nations and crusades. The bourgeoisie cannot exist without constantly revolutionizing the instruments of production, and thereby the relations of production, and with them the whole relations of society. Conservation of the old modes of production and altered forms was, on the contrary, the first condition of existence for all earlier industrial classes. Constant revolutionizing of production, uninterrupted disturbance of all social conditions, everlasting uncertainty and agitation distinguished the bourgeoisie epoch from all earlier ones. All fixed, fast, frozen relations with their train of ancient and vulnerable prejudices and opinions are swept away. All new-formed ones became antiquated before they can ossify. All that is solid melts into air. All that is holy is profaned, and man is at last compelled to face with somber senses his real condition of life and his relations with his kin. The need for constantly expanding the market for his products chases the bourgeoisie over the whole surface of the globe. It must nestle everywhere, settle everywhere, establish connections everywhere. The bourgeoisie has, through its exploitation of the world's market, given a constellation character to production and consumption in every country. To the great cauldron of reactionists, it has drawn from under the feet industry, national ground on which it stood. All old established national industries have been destroyed, or are daily being destroyed. They are dislodged by the new industries whose introduction becomes a life and death question for all civilized nations. By industries that no longer work up indigenous raw material, but raw material drawn from the remotest zones. Industries or products are consumed not only at home, but in every quarter of the globe. In place of the old wants satisfied by the production of the country, we find new wants, requiring for their satisfaction the products of distant lands and crimes. In place of the old local and national seclusion and self-sufficiency, we have intercourse in every direction. Universal interdependence of nations, and that is immaterial, so also in intellectual production. The intellectual creations of individual nations become common property. National one-sidedness and narrow-mindedness become more and more impossible, and from the numerous national and local literatures, there arises a world literature. The bourgeoisie, by the rapid improvement of all instruments in production, by the immensely facilitated means of communication, draws all, even the most barbarian nations, into civilization. The cheap prices of its commodities are the heavy artillery which it makes pattern on all Chinese walls, with which it forces the barbarians' intensely obstinate hatred for foreigners to catapult. It compels all nations on pain of extinction to adopt the bourgeoisie mode of production. It compels them to introduce what it calls civilization into their midst, and to become bourgeoisie themselves. In one word, it creates a world after its own image. The bourgeoisie have subjected the country to the rule of the towns, and has created enormous cities, has greatly increased the urban population rescued a considerable part of the population from the idiocy of rural life. Just as it has been made the century of development in towns, so it has made the barbarian and semi-barbarian countries dependent on the civilized ones, nations of peasants on nations of bourgeoisie. The East on the West, the bourgeoisie keeps more and more doing away with the scattered state of the population of the means of production and the means of property. And as a agglomerated population, centralized means of production is concentrated property in a few hands. The necessary consequence of this was political centralization. Independent or but loosely connected provinces with separate interest laws, governments, and systems of taxation become lumped together into one nation with one government, one code of laws, one national class interest, one frontier, and one customs tariff. The bourgeoisie, during its rule of scarce 100 years, has created more massive and more colossal productive forces than have all preceding generations together. Subjection of nations. Forces to man, machinery, application of chemistry to industry and agricultural, steam, navigation, railways, electric telegraphs, clearing of whole continents for cultivation, canalization of rivers, whole populations conjured out of the ground. What earlier century have even a presentiment that such productive forces slumbered in the lap of social labor? We see then the means of production, in exchange on whose foundation the bourgeoisie built itself up, were generated in feudal society. At a certain stage in the development of these means of production, in exchange of the conditions under which feudal society produced, in exchange of feudal organization of agriculture and manufacturing industry, in one word, the feudal relations of property became no longer compatible with the already developed productive forces. They became so many fetters that they had to burst asunder. And in their place stepped free competition, accompanied by a social and political constitution adapted to it, and by the economical and political sway of the bourgeoisie class. A similar movement is going on before your own eyes. Modern bourgeoisie society, with its relations of production, of exchange, and of property, in a society that has conjured up such a gigantic means of production and exchange, it is like a sorcerer who is no longer able to control the powers of the nether world, whom he is called up by his spells. For many a decade past, the history of industry and commerce is but the history of the revolt of modern productive forces against the modern conditions of production, against the property relations that are the conditions for the existence of the bourgeoisie and of its rule. It is enough to mention the commercial crisis that, by their periodical return, put on its trial, each time more therein lightly, the existence of the bourgeoisie society. And these crises, a great part not only of the existing products but also of previously created productive forces, is periodically destroyed. In these crises there breaks out an epidemic that in all earlier epochs would have seen an absurdity, the epidemic of over-reproduction. Society suddenly finds itself put back into a state of momentary barbarism. It appears as if famine, a universal war of devastation, has cut off the supply of every means of subsistence. Industry and commerce seem to be destroyed, and why? Because there's too much civilization, too much means of subsistence, too much industry, too much commerce. The productive forces at the disposal of society no longer tend to further the development of the conditions of the bourgeoisie property. On the contrary, they have become too powerful for these conditions by which they are fettered, and so soon that they overcome these fetters, but they bring disorder into the whole bourgeoisie society, danger the existence of the bourgeoisie property. The conditions of bourgeoisie society are too narrow to compromise the wealth created by them, and as the bourgeoisie get over these crimes, on the one hand, by enforced destruction of a mass of productive forces, on the other, by the conquest of new markets, and by the more thorough exploitation of the old ones, that is to say, by paving the way for more extensive and more destructive crises, and by diminishing the means of war by crisis are prevented. The weapons by which the bourgeoisie felled feudalism to the ground are now turned against the bourgeoisie itself. But not only has the bourgeoisie forged the weapons that bring the death to itself, it has also called into existence the men who are the wield those weapons, the modern working class, the proletarians. In proportion as the bourgeoisie capital is developed, in the same proportion as the proletariat, the modern working class developed a class of laborers who live only so long as they can find work, and who find work only so long as their labor increases capital. These laborers, who must sell themselves piecemeal, are commodity, like every other article of commerce, and are consequently exposed to all the felicities of competition and to the felicitations of the market. Owing to the extensive use of machinery and to the division of labor, the work of the proletarians has lost all individual character and consequently all charm for the workman. He becomes an machine is only to the most simple, most monotonous, and most easily acquired knack that is required of him. Hence, the cost of production of a workman is restricted almost entirely to the means of substance that he is required for his maintenance and for the propagation of his race. But the price of a commodity, and therefore also of labor, is equal in the long run to its cost of production and propagation. Therefore, as the repulsiveness of the work increases, the wage decreases. Nay, more in the preparation, as the use of machinery and division of labor increase, in the same proportion of the burden of toil also increases, whether by prolongation of the working hours, by increase of the work exacted in a given time, or by increased speed of machinery, etc. Modern industry has converted a little workshop of the beginning master in the great factory, or organized like soldiers. As privates of the industrial army, they are placed under the command of a perfect hierarchy of officers and sergeants. Not only are they slaves of the bourgeoisie and the bourgeoisie state, they are daily and hourly enslaved by the machine, by the overseer, and above all by the infant bourgeoisie manufacturer himself. The more openly the despotism proclaims gain to be its end and aim, the more petty, the more hateful, and the more impeding it is. The less skill and exertion of strength is implied in manual labor. In other words, the more modern industry becomes developed, the more is the labor of men superseded by that of women. Differences of age and sex have no longer any distinctive social validity. For the working class, all of instruments are labor, more or less expensive to use, according to age and sex. No sooner is the exploitation of the laborer by the manufacturer so far at the end that he receives his wages in cash, that he is set upon the other proportions of the bourgeoisie, the landlord, the shopkeeper, the pawnbroker, etc. The low strata of the middle class, the small tradespeople, shopkeepers, and retired tradesmen, generally the handicraftsmen, the peasants, all these sink gradually into the proletariat, partly because their diminutive capital does not suffice for the scale on which modern industry is carried on, and is swamped by the competition with large capitalists, partly because their specialized skill is rendered worthless by new methods of reproduction. Thus, the proletariat is recruited from all classes of population. The proletariat goes through various stages of development. With its birth begins its trouble with bourgeoisie. At first, the contest is carried on by individual laborers, then by the work people of the factory, then by the operatives of one trade in the locality, against the individual bourgeoisie who directly exploits them. They direct their attacks not against the bourgeoisie conditions of production, but against the instruments of production themselves. They destroy imported wares that compete with their labor. They smash to pieces of machinery. They set factories ablaze. They seek to restore by force the vanished status of the workmen of the Middle Ages. At this stage, the laborers still form in coherent mass scattered over the whole country and broken up by their mutual competition. If anywhere they unite to form more compact bodies, this is not yet the consequence of their own active union, but of the union of the bourgeoisie, which class, in order to attain its own political ends, is compelled to set the whole proletariat in motion, and is moreover yet for a time able to do so. At this stage, however, the proletarians do not fight their enemies, but the enemies of their own enemies. The remnants of absolute monarchy and the landowners, the non-industrial bourgeoisie, the petty bourgeoisie. Thus, the whole historical movement is concentrated in the hands of the bourgeoisie. Every victory so obtained is a victory for the bourgeoisie. But with the development of industry, the proletariat not only increases in number, it becomes concentrated in greater masses. Its strength grows, and it feels that strength more. The various interests and conditions of life within the ranks of the proletariat are more and more equalized. In proportion as machinery obliterates all distinctions of labor, and nearly everywhere reduces wages to the same low level. The growing competition among the bourgeoisie and the resulting commercial crisis make the wages of the workers ever more fluctuating. The unceasing improvement of machinery, ever more rapidly developing, makes their livelihood more and more precocious. The collisions between individual workmen and individual bourgeoisie take more and more the character of collisions between two classes. Thereupon the workers begin to form combinations against the bourgeoisie. They club together in order to keep up the rate of wages. They found permanent associations in order to make provisions beforehand the occasional revolts. Here and there the contest brings into riots. Now and then the workers are victorious, but only for a time. The real further battles lies in the immediate result, but in the ever more improved means of communication that are created in modern industry and place the workers of different localities into contact with one another. It was just this contact that was needed to centralize the numerous local struggles, all of the same character, into one national struggle between classes. But every class struggle is a political struggle, and that union to attain which the brothers of Middle Ages with their miserable highways required centuries, the modern proletarians, thanks place achieve in a few years. This organization of the proletarians into class, consequently into a political party, is continually being upset again by the competition between the workers themselves, but it ever rises up again, stronger, firmer, mightier. It compels legislative recognition of political interest of the workers by taking advantage of the divisions among the bourgeoisie itself. Thus, in 10 hours, bill in England was carried. Altogether, collisions between the classes, the old society further in many ways the course of the development of the proletariat. The bourgeoisie find itself involved in a constant battle. At first with the aristocracy, later on with those portions of the bourgeoisie itself whose interests have become antagonistic with the progress of industry. At all times the bourgeoisie of foreign countries, and all these countries sees itself compelled to appeal the proletariat, and to ask for help, and thus to drag it in the political arena. The bourgeoisie itself therefore supplies the proletariat with weapons for fighting the bourgeoisie. Further, as we've already seen, entire sections of the ruling classes are the advance of industry, precapacitated into the proletariat, or at least threatened in their conditions of existence. These also supply the proletariat with fresh elements of enlightenment and progress. Finally, at times, with the crash struggle nears the decisive hour, the process of dissolution going on with the ruling class, in fact, within the whole range of old society, assumes such a violent, glaring character that a small section of the ruling class cuts itself in a throat and joins a revolutionary class, the class that holds the future in its hands, just as therefore, in an early period, a section of the nobility went over to the bourgeoisie. So now a portion of the bourgeoisie goes over to the proletariat, and a particular portion of the bourgeoisie idolists, who have raised themselves to the level of comprehending theologically the historical movement as a whole. Of all the classes that stand face to face with the bourgeoisie today, the proletariat alone is a really revolutionary class. The other classes decay, and finally disappear into the face of modern industry. The proletariat is a special and essential product. Though we're lower middle class, the small manufacturer, the shopkeeper, the artisan, the peasant, all these fight against the bourgeoisie to save from extinction their existence as fractions of the middle class. They are therefore not revolutionary, but conservative. Nay, more, they are reactionary, for they try to roll back the wheel of history. If by chance they are revolutionary, they are so only in the view of their impending transfer to the proletariat. They thus defend not their present, but their future interest. That is, at their own standpoint, place themselves at that of the proletariat, the dangerous class, the social scum, the passive, rotting class thrown off by the lowest layers of old society, may here and there be swept in the movement by a proletarian revolution. Conditions of life, however, prepared are far more for the part of the deprived tool of reactionary intrigue. The conditions of the proletariat, those of old society at large, are already virtually swamped. The proletarian is without property. His relation to his wife and his children has no longer anything in common with the bourgeoisie family relations. Modern industrial behavior, modern subjection to capital, the same in England as in France, in America as in Germany, has stripped him of every trace of national character. Law, morality, religion are to him as many bourgeoisie prejudices, behind him which lurk and ambush just as many bourgeoisie interests. All the preceding classes that got an upper hand sought to fortify their already acquired status by subjecting society at large to the conditions of operation. The proletarians cannot become masters of the productive forces of society except by abolishing their own previous mode of operation, and thereby also every other previous mode of operation. They have nothing of their own to secure and fortify their mission and destroy all previous securities, furniture, and federal property. All previous historical movements were movements of minorities or in the interest of minorities. The proletarian movement is thus a self-conscious, independent movement of the immense majority and the interest of the immense majority. The proletariat, the lowest stratum of our present society, cannot stir, cannot raise itself up without the whole of the superincumbent strata of the official society being sprung into the air. Though not in substance yet in form, the struggle of the proletariat with the bourgeoisie is at first a national struggle. The proletariat of each country must, of course, first of all settle matters in its own bourgeoisie. In depicting the most general phases of development of proletariat, we've traced the more or less built civil war, raging within existing society up to the point where the war breaks out of open revolution, and where the violent overthrow of the bourgeoisie lays the foundation for the sway of the proletariat. Hitherto, every form of society has been based, as we've already seen, on the antagonism of oppressing and oppressing classes. But in order to oppress this class, certain conditions must be assured to it, which it can at least continue in slavish existence. The serf, in the period of the serfdom, raised himself to membership into the commune, just as the petty bourgeoisie, under the yoke of the feudal capitalist and managed to develop into a bourgeoisie. The modern laborer, on the contrary, increased of rising the progress of industry, sinks deeper and deeper into the conditions of existence of his own class. It becomes a power, and a pauperism develops more rapidly than the population and wealth. And here it becomes evident that the bourgeoisie is unfit any longer to be the ruling class in society and to impose its conditions of existence upon society as an overriding law. It is unfit to rule because it is incompetent to assure an existence and to a slave within slavery. It cannot help him sink into such a state that is to feed him instead of being fed by him. Society can no longer live under this bourgeoisie. In other words, an existence is no longer compatible with the society. This essential conditions for the existence for the sway of the bourgeoisie class is the formation and accumulation of capital. The condition for capital is wage labor. Wage labor resists exclusively on competition between the laborers. The advance of industry whose involuntary prompters, the bourgeoisie, replaces the isolation of laborers due to competition by the revolutionary combination due to the association. The development of modern industry therefore cuts from under its feet the very foundation on which the bourgeoisie produces and appropriates products. What the bourgeoisie therefore produces above all are its own grave diggers, and its fall and the victory of proletariat are equally inevitable. A bourgeoisie is meant the class of modern capitalist owners by the means of social production and employees of wage labor. By proletariat, the class of modern wage laborers who have no means of production of their own and are reduced to selling their labor power in order to live. That is all written in history. In 1847, the prehistory of the society, the social organization existence, previous to recorded history, was all that but unknown. Since then, Hoxhausen discovered common ownership of land in Russia. Maurer proved it to be social foundation from which all Teutonic races started in history, and by and village communes were found to be, or have been to the primitive form of society everywhere from India to Ireland. The inner organization of the primitive communist society was laid bare in its typical form by Morgan's crowning discovery of the true nature of the chins and its relation to the tribe. With the dissolution of these primitive communities, society begins to differentiate into separate and finally antagonistic classes. I have attempted to retrace its process of dissolution in Der Ursprung der Family des Propheten und des Staats, second edit, Stuttgart 1886. Guildmaster, that is, a full member of a guild, a master within, not a head of a guild. Commune was the name taken in France by the Nazi towns even before they had conquered for them feudal lords and masters, local self-government, political rights as a third estate. Generally speaking, for the economical development of the bourgeoisie, England is here taken as the typical country for its political movement development. France. Article 2. Proletarians and Communists. In relation to the communists and to the proletarians as a whole, the communists do not form a separate party opposed to the other working class parties. They have no interests separate and apart from those of the proletariats as a whole. They do not set up any sectarian principles of their own by which to shape the mold of proletarian movement. The communists are distinguished from other working class parties by this only: 1. In the national struggles of the proletarians of different countries, they point out and bring to the front common interest of the entire proletariat, independently of all nationality. 2. In the various stages of development by which the struggle of the working class against the bourgeoisie has to pass through, they always and everywhere represent the interest of the movement as a whole. The communists, therefore, are on the one hand practically the most advanced and resolute section of the working class parties of every country, that section of which pushes forward all others. On the other hand, theoretically, they have over the great mass of the proletariat the advantage of clearly understanding that line of march, the conditions and the ultimate general results of the proletariat movement. The immediate aim of the communist is the same as that of all the other proletarian parties: formation of the proletariat to a class over the bourgeoisie supremacy, conquest of political power by the proletariat. Theatrical conclusions of the communists are in no way based on ideas or principles that have been invented or discovered by that will be a universal reformer. They merely express in general terms actual relations springing from an existing class struggle, from a historical movement coming on under our very eyes. The abolition of existing property relations is not at all a distinct feature of communism. All property relations in the past have continually been subject to historical change, consequent upon the change of historical conditions. The French Revolution, for example, abolished feudal property in favor of bourgeoisie property. The distinguished feature of communism is not that of abolition of property generally, but the abolition of bourgeoisie property. But modern bourgeoisie private property is the final and most complete expression of the system of producing and appropriating products that is based has preceded by the bourgeoisie form. There is no need to abolish that. The development of industry has to a great extent already destroyed it, and is still destroying it daily. Or do you mean modern bourgeoisie private property? But does wage labor create any property for the laborer? Not a bit. It creates capital, that kind of property which exploits wage labor and which cannot increase except upon condition of beckoning a new supply of wage labor for fresh exploitation. Property in its present form is based on the antagonism of capital and wage labor. Let us examine both sides to this antagonism. To be a capitalist is to have not only a purely personal but a social status in production. Capital is a collective product, not only by the united action of many members, nay, in the last resort, only by the united action of all members of society can it be set in motion. Capital is therefore not a personal, it is a social power. When therefore capital is converted into common property, into the property of all members of society, personal property is not thereby transformed into social property. It is only the social character of the property that is changed and loses its class character. Let us now take wage labor. The average price of wage labor is the minimum wage, the quantum of the means of substance which is absolutely requisite to keep the laborer in bare existence as a laborer. What therefore the wage laborer appropriates by means of labor merely suffices to prolong and reproduce a bare existence. We by no means intend to abolish this personal appropriation of the products of labor, an appropriation that is made for the maintenance and reproduction of human life, and that means no surplus were there to command the labor of others. All that we want to do away with is miserable character of this appropriation, of which labor lives merely to increase capital, and is allowed to live only in so far as the interest of the ruling class requires it. In bourgeoisie society, living labor is but means an increase to accumulated labor. In communist society, accumulated labor is but a means to widen, to enrich, to promote the existence of the laborer. In bourgeoisie society, therefore, the past dominates the present. In communist society, the present dominates the past. In bourgeoisie society, capital is independent and has individuality, while the living person is dependent and has no individuality. The abolition of the state of things is called by the bourgeoisie abolition of individuality and freedom, and rightly so. The abolition of bourgeoisie individuality, bourgeoisie independence, and bourgeoisie freedom is undoubtedly aimed at. By freedom is meant, under the present bourgeoisie conditions of production, free trade, free selling, and free buying. But if selling and buying disappears, free selling and buying disappears also. This talk about free selling and buying, and all the other brave words of bourgeoisie about freedom in general, have a meaning, if any, only in contrast with the restricted selling and buying with the feudal traders of the Middle Ages, but have no meaning when opposed to the communistic abolition of the buying and selling of the bourgeoisie conditions of production and the bourgeoisie itself. You are horrified at our intended to do the way of private property. But in your existing society, private property is already done away with for 9/10 of the population, and existence of the few is solely due to its non-existence in the hands of those 9/10. You reapproach us, therefore, with intending to do away with all form of property, the necessary condition of those existence of the non-existence of any property for the immense majority of society. In one word, you reapproach us with intending to do away with your property, and precisely so. That is what we intended. From the moment when labor can no longer be converted into capital, money, or into a social power capable of being monopolized, from the movement with individual property can no longer be transformed into bourgeoisie property and capital. From that movement, you say individuality vanishes. You must therefore confess that by individual, you mean no other person in the bourgeoisie than the middle class of owner of property. This person must indeed be swept out of the way and made impossible. Communism deprives no man of power to appropriate the products of society. All that it does is deprive him of this power to subjugate all labor that others mean by means of such appropriation. It has been objected that upon the abolition of private property, all work will cease and universal laziness will overtake us. According to this, bourgeoisie society ought long ago to have gone to the dogs through sheer idleness, for those of its members who work acquire nothing, and then those who acquire anything but do not work. The whole of this objection is but another expression of tautology, that there can no longer be any wage labor when there is no longer any capital. All objections against the communistic mode of producing and appropriating materials have in the same way been urged against communistic modes of production and appropriating intellectual products. Just as to the bourgeoisie, the disappearance of class property is the disappearance of the production itself, so the disappearance of class culture is to him identical with the disappearance of all culture. That culture, the loss of which he laments, is for the enormous majority, a mere training to act as a machine. But don't wrangle with us as long as you apply to your attendant abolition of bourgeoisie property, the standard of your bourgeoisie notions of freedom, culture, law, etc. Your very ideas are but outgrowth of the conditions, just as your bourgeoisie production and bourgeoisie property, just as your jurisdiction, but it is will of a class made into a law for all, at will, whose essential character and direction are determined by the economical conditions of existence of your class. The selfish misconception that indeed you transform into eternal laws of nature and of reason, the social forms springing from your present mode of production and form of property, historical relations that rise and disappear into the progress of production, the misconception you share with every ruling class that has preceded you. What you see clearly in the case of ancient property, what you omit in the case of feudal property, you are of course forbidden to omit in the case of your own bourgeoisie form of property. Abolition of the family, even the most radical flare-up at this infamous proposal of communists. On what foundation is the present family, the bourgeoisie family based on capital and private gain in its completely developed form? This family exists only among the bourgeoisie. But this state of things finds its complement in practical absence of the family among the proletarians and in public prostitution. The bourgeoisie family will vanish as a matter of course when its complement vanishes, and both will vanish with the vanishing of the capital. Do you charge us with wanting to stop the exploitation of children by their parents? To this crime we plead guilty, but you will say we destroy the most hallowed of relations when we replace home education by social, and your education is not that also social and determined by the social conditions under which you educate by the intervention indirect of social, by means of schools, etc. The communists have not invented the interventionist society in education. They do not but seek to alter the character of that intervention and to rescue the education from the influence of the ruling class. The bourgeoisie claptrap about the family and education, but the hollowed correlation of parent and child become all the more disgusting, as by the action of modern industry, all family ties among the proletarians are torn asunder, and their children transformed into simple articles of commerce and instruments of labor. But you communists would introduce a community of women, screams the whole bourgeoisie in chorus. A bourgeoisie sees in his wife a mere instrument of production. He hears that the instrument of production are to be exploited in common, and naturally can come to no other conclusion that the lot of being common to all will likewise fall to the women. He has not even a suspicion that the real point aimed at us is to do away with the status of women as mere instruments of production. For the rest, nothing is more ridiculous than the virtuous indignation of our bourgeoisie, the community of women, which they pretend is to be openly and officially established by the communists. The communists have no need to introduce a community of women. It has existed almost from time immemorial. Our bourgeoisie, not content with having the wives and daughters of the proletarians at their disposal, not to speak of common prostitutes, take the greatest pleasure in seducing each other's wives. Bourgeoisie in marriage is reality, and it's in reality a system of wives in common, and thus at the most what communists might possibly reproach with is that they desire to introduce a substitution for a bureaucratically concealed and openly legalized community of women. For the rest, it's self-evident that the abolition of the present system of production must bring with it the abolition of the community of women, springing from that system. Prostitution, both public and private. The communists are further reapproached with desiring to abolish countries and nationality. The working men have no country. We cannot take from them what they do not have. Since proletariat must first of all acquire political supremacy, must rise to the leading of the class of the nation, must constitute itself to the nation, and is so far itself national, though not the bourgeoisie sense of the world. National differences and antagonisms between peoples are daily more and more vanishing, owing to the development of bourgeoisie, to freedom of commerce, to the world's market, to uniformity, mode of reproduction as in conditions of life corresponding thereto. The supremacy of proletariat will cause them to vanish still faster. United action of the leading civilized countries, at least, is one of the first conditions for emancipation of the proletariat. In proportion of the exploitation of one individual by another is put to an end, the exploitation of one nation under another will also be put to an end too. In proportion, the antagonism between classes within a nation vanishes. The hostility of one nation to another will come to an end. The charges against communism will be made from religious and philosophical, and generally from an ideological standpoint, and are not serving serious examination. Does it require deep intuition to comprehend that a man's ideas, views, and concepts, in one words, man's conscience changes with every change in the conditions of his material existence and his social relations and his social life? What else does the history of ideas prove? That the actual intellectual production production changes its character in proportion as material of production is changed. The ruling ideas of each age have ever been produced by the ideas of its ruling class. When people speak of ideas that revolutionize society, they do but express the effect that within the old society the elements of a new one have been created, and that the dissolution of the old ideas keeps even peace with the dissolution of old conditions of existence. When the ancient world has said its last arrows, ancient religions were overcome by Christianity. When Christianity ideas succumbed into the 18th century to rationalist ideas, feudal society fought its death battle with the dead and the revolutionary bourgeoisie. The ideas of religious liberty and freedom of conscience merely gave an expression to the sway of the free competition with the domain of real knowledge. Undoubtedly, we've said religious, moral, philosophical, and judicial ideas have been modified in the course of historical development, but religion, morality, philosophy, political science, and law constantly survive this change. They are besides internal truths such as freedom, justice, etc., that are common to all states of society, but communism abolishes internal truths and abolishes all religion and morality instead of constituting them on new bases. It therefore acts in contradiction to all past historical experience. What does this acquisition reduce itself to? The history of all past society has consisted of the development of class antagonisms that assume different forms of different epochs. But whatever form they have taken, one fact is commonly to pass all past ages, viz., the exploitation of one part of society by the other. No wonder then all the social consciousness of past ages despite all the materiality, variety of displays most within certain common forms, general ideas which cannot completely vanish except in the total disappearance of class antagonisms. The communist revolution is the most radical rupture with traditional property relations. No wonder that as its development involves the most radical rupture with the traditional ideas. What does that have done with the bourgeoisie objection to communism? We have seen above the first step into the revolution by working class is to raise the proletariat to the position of the ruling class to win the battle of democracy. The proletariat will use its political supremacy to wrest by decrease all capital from the bourgeoisie and to centralize all instruments of production by the hands of the state. The proletariat organized by the ruling class and to increase the total productive forces as rapidly as possible. Of course, in the beginning, this cannot be effected except by the means of despotic inroads of the rights of the property and on the conditions of bourgeoisie production, by means of measures, therefore, which appear economically insufficient and unattainable, but which in this course of the movement outstrip themselves and necessitate further inroads upon the old social order and unavoidable as means of entirely revolutionary mode of production. These measures will, of course, be different in different countries. Nevertheless, in the most advanced countries, the following be pretty generally applicable. Abolition of property in land and application of all rents of land to public purposes. 2. A heavy progressive or graduated income tax. 3. Abolition of all right of inheritance. 4. Confiscation of property of all immigrants and rebels. 5. Centralization of credit in the hands of the state by means of a national bank with the state capital and exclusive monopoly. 6. Centralization of the means of communication and transportation in the hands of the Senate. 7. Extension of the factors and instruments of production owned by the state, the bringing into cultivation of wastelands and the improvement of soil, generally in accordance with a common plan. 8. Equal liability of all to labor. Establishment of industrial armies, especially of agriculture. 9. Combination of agriculture with manufacturing industries. Gradual abolition of the distinction between town and country by more of an equitable distribution of the population over the country. Free education for all children in public schools. Abolition of children's factory labor and business form. Combination of education with industrial production, etc., etc. When in the course of development, class distinctions have disappeared, and all production has been concentrated in the hands of a vast association of the world and the nation. The public power will lose all its political power. Properly so called is merely the organized power of one class for oppressing another. The proletariat, during its contest with the bourgeoisie, is compelled by the force of the circumstances to organize itself as a class. If by means of a revolution it makes itself the ruling class, and as such sweeps away the force of all conditions of production, then it will, along with these conditions, have swept away the conditions for the existence of class antagonisms and of classes generally, and will thereby have abolished its own supremacy as a class. In place of the old bourgeoisie society with its classes and class antagonisms, we shall have an association in which the free development of each is the condition for free development of all. Article 3. Socialist and Communist Literature. Subchapter 1. Reactionary Socialism. Owing to their historical position, it became the vocation of aristocracies of France and England to write pamphlets against modern bourgeoisie society. 1830, in the English Reform agitation, these aristocracies against a couple to the hateful upstart. Thenceforth, this series of political contest was altogether out of question. A literary battle was alone remained possible. But even in the domain of literature, the old cries of the Restoration period had become impossible. In order to arouse sympathy, the aristocracy were obliged to lose sight, apparently by their own interest, and to formulate their indictment against the bourgeoisie in the interest of the exploited working class alone. Thus, the aristocracy took their revenge by signing lampoons to their new master, and whispering in his ears sinister prophecies of coming catastrophe. In this way arose feudal socialism, half lamentation, half lampoon, half echo of the past, half menace of the future, at times by its better witty and incisive criticism, striking the bourgeoisie to very heart's core, but also ludicrous in its effects through so total incapacity to comprehend the march of modern history. The aristocracy, in order to rally the people to the whim, waved the proletarian alms bag in front of a banner, but the people so often as to join them saw in the headquarters the old feudal coats of arms, inserted with loud and irreverent laughter. One section of the French legitimists in Young England exhibited into this spectacle, pointing out that their mode of exploitation was different from that of the bourgeoisie. The feudalists forget that they exploited under circumstances and conditions that they were quite different, and that they are now acquainted, and showing that under the rule of the modern proletariat never existed, they forget that the modern bourgeoisie is the necessary offspring of their own forms of society. For the rest, so little do they conceal the reactionary character of their criticism that their chief acquisition of the bourgeoisie amounts to this, that under the bourgeoisie regime a class is being developed which is destined to cut, uproot, and branch the old order of society. What they upbraid is the bourgeoisie, with it's not so much that it's created proletariat, that has created a revolutionary proletariat. In political practice, therefore, they can join in all coercive measures against the working class in ordinary life, despite their highfalutin phrases. They stoop to pick up the golden apples dropped from the tree of industry, and depart to truth, love, and honor, and traffic of the wild beetroot, sugar, and potato spirit. As the parson has never gone hand in hand with the landlord, so is the clerical socialism with feudal socialism. Nothing is easier than to give Christian aestheticism a socialist tinge. Has not Christianity declaimed against private property, against marriages, against the state? Has it not preached in the place of these charity and poverty, celibacy and mortification of the flesh, monastic life and mother church? Christian socialism is but the holy water of which the priest concentrates the heart burnings of the aristocrat. Subpart B. Petty bourgeoisie socialism. The feudal aristocracy was not the only class that ruined by the bourgeoisie, not the only class whose conditions exist and perish in the atmosphere of modern bourgeoisie society. The medieval bourgeoisie and the small peasant profiteers are the precursors of modern bourgeoisie. In those countries which are but little developed, industrially and commercially, these two classes still vegetated by side with the rising bourgeoisie. In countries where modern civilization has become fully developed, a new class of petty bourgeoisie has been formed, fluctuating between proletariat and bourgeoisie, and ever renewing itself as a preliminary part of a bourgeoisie society. The individual members of this class, however, are being constantly hurt and hauled down by the proletariat, the action and competition as modern industry develops. They even see the moment approaching when they will completely disappear as the independent section of modern society to be replaced in manufactures, agriculture, and commerce by overlookers, bailiffs, shopmen. In countries like France, where the peasants constitute far more than half the population, it was natural that the writers who sided with the proletariat against the bourgeoisie should use in their criticism of the bourgeoisie regime the standard of the peasant and the petty bourgeoisie, and from the standpoint of these intermediate classes, should take up the cuticles for the working class, and thus arouse petty bourgeoisie socialism. Sismondi was that of this school, not only in France but also in England. The school of socialism dissected with great acuteness the contradictions and the conditions of modern production, and laid bare the hypocritical apologies and ignominies, and proved incontrovertibly the disastrous effects of machinery and division of labor, the concentration of capital on land in a few hands, of production and crisis. It pointed out the inevitable ruin of the petty bourgeoisie and peasant, the misery of the proletariat, the anarchy in production, the crying inequalities in the distribution of wealth, the industrial war of extermination between nations, the dissolution of old moral bonds, of old family relations, of old nationalities. And its positive aims, however, this form of socialism aspires either to restoring the old means of production deception. This form of socialism ended in a miserable fit with the blues. Subchapter C. German or True Socialism. Socialist and communist literature of France. Literature that has originated under the pressure of bourgeoisie and power, and that was the expression of the struggle against this power, was introduced in Germany at a time when the bourgeoisie in that country had just begun its contest with feudal absolutism. German philosophers would be philosophers and be spirits equally seized on this literature, only forgetting that when the writings immigrated from France into Germany, French social conditions had immigrated along with them. And contact with German social conditions, this French literature lost all of its immediate practical significance and assumed a purely literary aspect. Thus, to the German philosophers of the 18th century, the demands of the first French Revolution were nothing more than the demands of practical reason in general, and the utterances of the will of the French bourgeoisie, signified in their eyes the laws of pure will, or that was bound to be of the true human will generally. The work of the German literati consisted solely in bringing the new French ideas into harmony with their ancient philosophical conscience, or rather in annexing the French ideas without deserting their own philosophical point of view. This annexation took place in the same way in which a foreign language is appropriated, namely by translation. It is well known by the monks who wrote silly lives of the Catholic saints over the manuscripts of which the classical works of ancient heathendom had been written. The German literati reversed this process with a profane French literature. They wrote philosophical nonsense beneath the French original, for instance, beneath the French criticism of economic functions or of money. They wrote alienation of humanity, and beneath the French criticism of the bourgeoisie state, they wrote death, arraignment of the category or general, and so forth. In the introduction of these philosophical phrases in the back of the French or historical criticisms, they dubbed philosophy of action, true socialism, German science of socialism, philosophical foundation of socialism, and so on. The French socialist and communist literature was thus completely emasculated, and since it ceased in the hands of the German to express the struggle of one class with the other, he felt conscious of having overcome French one-sidedness, and of representing not true requirements, but the requirements of truth and the interest of proletariat, but with interest in human nature and of man in general, who belongs to no class, has no reality, and exists only in the mist realm of the philosophical fantasy. This German socialism, which took its schoolboy task so seriously and solemnly, and exalted its poor stock and trade in such mountebank fashion, meanwhile gradually lost its pedantic innocence. The fight for the German, especially the Prussian bourgeoisie, against feudal aristocracy and the absolute monarchy, in other words, the liberal movement, became more earnest. By this, the long wish for the opportunity was offered to the true socialism in confronting the political movement which the socialist demands of hurling the traditional and methods against liberalism, against representative government, against bourgeoisie competition, bourgeoisie freedom of the press, bourgeoisie legislation, bourgeoisie liberty and equality, and of preaching the masses that they had nothing to gain and everything to lose by the bourgeoisie movement. German socialism forgot in the nick of time that the French criticism of Louis-Ego was presupposed by the existence of modern bourgeoisie society with its corresponding economic conditions of existence in the political constitution adapted thereto, the very things whose attainment was the object of the pending struggle in Germany. To the absolute governments with the following parsons, professors, country squires, and officials served it. Welcome scarecrow against threatening bourgeoisie. It was a sweet finish after the bitter pills of floggings and bullets with which these same governments, just at the time, dosed the German working class raisings. While this true socialism thus served as the government as a weapon for the fighting German bourgeoisie, at the same time, directly represented a reactionary interest, the interest of the German Philistines. The German, the petty bourgeoisie, a class, a relic of the 16th century, and since the constantly cropping up again in the various forms, is real social basis of the existing state of things. To preserve this class, and to preserve existing states of things in Germany, the industrial and political supremacy of the bourgeoisie threatens it with certain destruction, on the one hand from the concentration of the capital, on the other from the rise of the revolutionary proletariat. True socialism appeared to kill these two birds with one stone, and spread it like an epidemic. The road of speculative cobwebs, embroidered with flowers, erratic, stepped in the dew of sentiment, this translucent robe, which German socialists wrapped their story, eternal truths, all skin and bone, served one to the increased of the sale of their goods amongst the public. And on his part, German socialism was recognized more and more by its own calling in the bombastic representative of petty bourgeoisie Philistine, and proclaimed the German nation to the model of nation and the German petty Philistine to be the typical man, a socialist interpretation the exact contrary of his real character, went to the extreme length of directly opposing the brutal destructive tendency of communism, and proclaiming a supreme and impartial concept of all class struggles, with very few exceptions. All of the so-called socialist and communist publications that now circulate in Germany belong to the domain of his Fallon and Verity English. Subarticle 2. Conservative bourgeoisie socialism. A part of the bourgeoisie is to serious redress social grievances in order to secure the continued existence of bourgeoisie society. To this section belong communists, philanthropists, humanitarians, approvers of the condition of the working class, organizers, charity members of societies for the benefit of the cruelty of animals, temperance fanatics, the hole and corner reformers of every imaginable kind. This form of socialism has, moreover, been worked out into complete systems. We might cite Proudhon's philosophy de la misère, an example of its form. The socialist bourgeoisie want all the advantages of modern social conditions without struggles and dangers necessarily resulting therefrom. They desire the existing state, the socialist minus and revolutionary and disintegrating elements. They wish for a bourgeoisie without the proletariat. The bourgeoisie naturally conceives the word, which is supreme to be the beast, and the bourgeoisie socialism develops this comfortable conception into various more or less complete systems, requiring the proletariat to carry out such a system, and thereby to march straight away into the social neutralism. It but requires and relies that the proletariat should remain within the bounds of the existing society, but should cast away all hateful its ideas concerning the bourgeoisie. A second, more practical, but less systematic form of the socialism sought to appreciate every revolutionary movement in the eyes of the working class by showing that no mere political reform, but a change in the material conditions of existence and economical relations could be of an advantage to them. By changes in the material conditions of existence, this form of socialism, however, by no means understands abolition of the bourgeoisie relations of production, an abolition that can be effected only by revolution, by administrative reforms, based on the continued existence of these relations. Reforms, therefore, that in no respect to the effective relations between capital and labor, but at the best lessen the cost and simply the administrative work of bourgeoisie movement. Bourgeoisie socialism intends adequate expression when, and only when, it becomes a mere figure of speech. Free trade for the benefit of the working class, protective duties for the benefit of the working class, prison reform for the benefit of the working class. This is the last word, and the only serious meant of the word of the bourgeoisie socialism. It is summed up in the phrase, the bourgeoisie is a bourgeoisie for the benefit of the working class. Subarticle 3. Critical. Utopian socialism and communism. We do not here refer to that literature which, in every great modern revolution, has always given voice to the demands of proletariat, such as the writings of Babeuf and others. This direct attempts for the proletariat to attain its own ends, made in times of universal excitement with feudal society, was being overthrown. These attempts necessarily failed, owing to them the undeveloped state of the proletariat, as well as to the absence of the economic conditions for its emancipation, conditions that had not yet been produced and could be produced by the impending bourgeoisie epoch alone. The revolutionary literature that accompanied these first movements of the proletariat had necessarily a reactionary character. It inoculated universal asceticism and social leveling in its greatest form. The socialist and communist systems, properly so called, those of St. Simon, Fourier, Owens, and others, spring into existence in a clearly undeveloped period, described above on the struggle between proletariat and bourgeoisie. The founders of these systems see, indeed, the class of antagonisms, as well as the action of decomposing elements in the prevailing forms of society, where the proletariat, as yet in its infancy, offers to them the spectacle of class without any historical initiative or independent political movement. Since the development of class antagonism keeps even pace with the development of industry, the economic situation as they find it does not as yet offer to them the material conditions of emancipation of the proletariat. They therefore search after a new social science, after new social laws, that they are to create these conditions. Historical action is to yield the personal innovative action, historically created conditions of emancipation to fantastic ones, and the gradual spontaneous class organization of the proletariat into organization of society specifically contrived by the inventors. Future history resolves itself in their eyes in the propaganda and the practical carrying out of their social plans. The formation of the plans they are conscious of carrying chiefly for the interests of the working class, as being the most suffering class. Only from the point of view of being the most suffering class does the proletariat exist for them. The undeveloped state for the class struggle, as well as their own surroundings, cause socialists of this kind to consider themselves far superior to all classes' antagonisms. They want to improve the condition of every member of society, even that of most favored. Hence, they habitually appeal to society at large, without distinction of class, nay, by preference to the ruling class. For how can people, when once they understand their systems, fail to see it in the best possible necessarily doomed by failure, and by the force of example to pave the way for the new social gospel. Such fantastic pictures of future society painted at a time when the proletariat are still in a very undeveloped state, and has but a fantastic conception of its own, correspond with the first initiative yearnings of that class of a general reconstruction of society. But these socialist and communist publications continue also a critical element. They attack every principle of existing society, hence they are full of the most valuable materials for the enlightenment of the working class. The practical measures proposed in them by such as an abolition of the distinction between town and country, of the family, of the carrying out of these interests for the account of the private individuals in the wage system, the proclamation of social harmony, the conversion of the functions of the state into a mere superintendence of production. All these proposals point solely to the disappearance of a class antagonisms which at the time were only just cropping up, and at which in the publications are recognized under the earliest and distinct and undefined forms only. These proposals, therefore, are of a purely utopian character. The significance of critical utopian socialism and communism bears an impressive relation to the historical development. Portion as the modern class struggle develops and takes a definitive shape in this fantastic standing apart from the contest. The fantastic attacks lose all practical value and all theoretical justification. Therefore, all the originators of these systems were in many aspects revolutionary. Their disciples have in every case for mere reactionary sects. They hold facts by original views of the masters, in opposition to the progressive historical development of the proletariat. They therefore endeavor and that constantly to deaden the class struggle and to reconcile the class antagonisms. They still dream of experimental realization and of social utopias, of founding isolated phylacteries, of established home colonies, of setting up a little Icaria, duotic cinema, additions of the New Jerusalem, and to realize all these castles in the air, they are compelled to reveal the feelings of the pursuit of the bourgeoisie. By degrees, they sink into the category of the reactionary conservative socialists depicted above, differing from these only by more systematic pedantry and by the fanatical and superstition belief in the miraculous effects of the social science. They therefore violently oppose all political action on the part of the working class, such as action, according to them, can only result from blind belief in the new gospel. Though in Indies of England and the Furiosties in France respectively oppose the Chartist and Reformist. Not only the English Restoration of 1660 to 1668, but the French Restoration of 1814 to 1830, this by chiefly the German, where they landed in Shaxi and Square-Shaxi, have large portions of their estate cultivated for their own account by stewards, and are moreover extensive beetroots, sugar manufacturers, and distillers of potato spirits. The wealthier British aristocracy are yet as rather above, but they are too now allowed to make up the declined rents by lending their names to floaters of more or less shady joint stock companies. Flintishers were socialist colonies on the planet Charlestown. Icaria was the name given to the capital by the Utopia and later on to his American Communist colony. Article 4. Position of the communists in relation to various extending opposition parties. Section 3. Has made clear the relations of the communists to existing working class parties, such as the characters in England and the Hungarian reforms in America. The communists fight for the attainment of the immediate aims for the enforcement of the monetary interest in the working class, but in the movement of the present, they also represent and take care of the future for that of the movement. And for instance, the communists allies themselves with the social democrats against the conservative radical bourgeoisie, reserving, however, the right to take up a critical position in regard to phrases and allusions traditionally handed down from the Great Revolution. In Switzerland, they would support the radicals without losing sight of the fact that the party consists of antagonist elements, partly of democratical socialist, in the French sense, partly of radical bourgeoisie. In Poland, they support the party that insists on an agrarian revolution as the prime condition of national emancipation, a party which formed the insurrection of the Krakow in 1846. In Germany, they fight with the bourgeoisie whenever it acts in a revolutionary way against the absolute monarchy, the feudal squarky, and the petty bourgeoisie. But they never cease for a single instant to instill the working class the clearest possible recognition of the hostile antagonism between the bourgeoisie and the proletariat, in order that the German workers may straightway use as many weapons against bourgeoisie, the social and political additions that the bourgeoisie must necessarily introduce, along with the supremacy, in order that after the fall of the recognition classes of Germany and the fight against the bourgeoisie itself may immediately begin. The communists turn their attention chiefly to Germany, because that country is on the eve of bourgeoisie revolution that is bound to be carried out under more advanced conditions of European civilization, and with a much more developed proletariat than that of England, which was in the 17th, and the France of the 18th century, and because the bourgeoisie revolution at Germany will be but the prelude to an immediate following proletarian revolution. In short, the communists everywhere support every revolutionary movement against the existing social and political order of things, and all these movements they bring to the front as the leading question in each, the property question, no matter what its degree of development at the time. Finally, they labor everywhere from the union and agreement to the democratic parties of all countries. The communists disdain to conceal their views and aims. They openly declare that their ends can be obtained only by the forcible overthrow of all existing social conditions. Like the ruling classes tremble at the communist revolution, the proletarians have nothing to lose but their chains. They have a world to win. Working men of all countries unite. The party, then represented in Parliament by Ludwig Rollin, in literature by Louis Blanc, in the daily press by the Reform, the name of social democracy signified, with these its inventors, a section of the Democratic or Republican Party, more or less tinged with socialism.